I love running. You may have even seen me at 5 a.m. on a cold wintry day outside chugging along with a smile on my face and been like, I want what that guy. But no, you can't, because running's hard and it's painful and it's difficult. However, I have a few psychological hacks that I've discovered in my decades of running that I would love to share with you that might make running feel just a little bit less painful. I think at some point in our lives, every single one of us has stubbed a toe or dropped something on our foot or jammed a finger in a car door, and when we did that, we probably very loudly uttered a curse word. And after doing such, you probably felt just a little bit better or less pain. There's a reason you did that. It's because swearing has been shown scientifically to provide a hypoalgesic or pain lessening effect. And this is backed up by a study from Keele University. Participants in one study were able to withstand an ice water challenge by 40 seconds longer while uttering a curse word versus a normal non-curse word. And when it came to squeezing a very tight hand grip, 81% of the participants were able to squeeze it much longer when uttering aloud a curse word every 3 seconds versus a regular word. Kind of they surmised that perhaps swearing brings about a general disinhibition, which kind of reduces the self-monitoring towards worries about burnout or overtraining or injury and allows you to kind of push a little bit harder. Swearing is an emotional response. It activates the sympathetic nervous system, which releases neurotransmitters acting as an analgesic or reducing pain. So next time you're in the middle of a hard race or workout, if you're really struggling, if you have the opportunity, maybe utter aloud a couple of swear words every couple of seconds. You might find that it helps you feel a little bit less pain. One of my absolute favorite books, I'm sure you've heard of it, Thinking Fast and Slow, Daniel Kahneman. There's something called the peak end rule, which states that you remember an experience by its peak emotion and the end of it. And there was a particular study where they had people hold their hands in extremely cold water and then rate the experience. And the people who had to hold their hands in longer actually rated it as less intense, because at the very end of the experiment, they would have slightly less cold water injected into the cold water. So it wasn't warm water, it was still cold, but it was getting slightly less cold at the very end in an additional period of time. And because that was a pleasant feeling relative to what they had experienced before, they rated it significantly more positively. What does this have to do with running? Well, finish your runs with a minute or two of slow, easy jogging, because that's what you're gonna remember. Easy. And in fact, I'm using the peak end rule in this video as well. I am saving the absolute best for last. There are times in a race when I feel like absolute garbage.
We both feel like absolute shit.
And you know what? I give up on myself and my day, and I say today is not my day. But you don't want to drop out, right? No one wants to sit and wait for a bus to bring you back. You keep jogging, you do your best, you get to the finish line. But what I have found is that I like to find a way to make something out of nothing. So oftentimes I'll cheer for those who are still competing or racing or doing their best and having a great day. And what I have found is that oftentimes just cheering and supporting others can lift your spirits and lessen the pain that you yourself are feeling. This coming from personal experience, I haven't found any scientific studies backing that specific claim up, but there are a ton of studies that show that volunteering or donating money or giving back is a way to lessen your pain and increase your happiness and well-being. So if you're not feeling well, try supporting, cheering, and just doing your best to help others, and you'll be surprised at how much less pain you'll feel and how much better you will feel. Every single marathon that I ran, and I've run 4 of them, every single one I ran with a very close friend and training partner. First marathon, CIM, Mason Frank. Second one, Tyler Germain, Houston. Mason Frank again in Frankfurt, Germany. And then finally last summer, Grandma's with Colin, who you might remember from 2 years ago in the Run and Poop Fast video. Now, the reason I always ran with someone was because mentally it felt so much less burdensome. It felt so much lighter and easier to have a close companion with me for warm-ups, the race, everything. And then a few weeks ago, I got an email from Sahil Bloom, and he mentioned a study And this is an absolutely insane study. So 2008 paper published in the Journal of Experimental Social Psychology. Researchers at the University of Virginia sought to study the impact of social support on how we perceive challenges. In the first study, the researchers had two groups of people standing at the base of a 26-degree hill. Now that's steep, right? Half the group was with a close companion and the other half was not. The people who had to tackle the steep hill with a close companion rated it as significantly easier than those who were alone. And they also found that the closer you were to this person, the more easy it felt. Having a training partner or friend, someone that you really trust and have a good rapport with, having them with for training and racing can make running feel so much easier. You might be thinking, well, you know what? I don't have that opportunity. I don't have a close friend or anyone who runs. In a follow-up study, the researchers had participants stand alone and simply imagine a supportive friend, and they got the same results. Even if you don't have the opportunity like I did to bring a friend along for training and racing, just imagining someone on the start line or in that race with you by your side can lessen the pain you're feeling immensely. Back in the day, I had a wonderful teammate by the name of John Gray, and I remember one particular workout one year where it maybe wasn't his best day, but he kept gutting it out. You know, I maybe said a couple of things to him throughout the workout, like, you know, maybe you should just cut it. He kept going and he gutted his way through it, and somehow he still crushed the workout. And at the end of it, I was like, man, I didn't think it was your day, but you found a way to pull it out. And he goes, oh, it wasn't my day. And what I come to realize is that, and this is something that I've done myself throughout my career, lying to yourself and telling yourself you're fine and you're okay and that you're not feeling any pain, you're not suffering, you're not hurting, can go a long ways. And this in particular is backed up by a study from Colorado College, published in the Journal of Experimental Psychology, which found that if you genuinely believe that you're fine and well rested and feeling okay, you'll perform better than if you were honest with yourself. Maybe don't use this too often because obviously you could end up injured or burnt out, but once in a while, in like a peak moment of a race, if you need to get to a point, you could lie to yourself and just tell yourself that you're doing better than you think you are. My senior year at the University of St. Thomas, I was leading the NCAA Division III Cross Country National Championship, and about halfway through the race, a kid from the State University of New York, Lee Berube, caught up to me and passed me. And in that moment, I had a flashback to a memory that occurred almost exactly 2 years earlier. See, my coach, Pete Wareham, at the University of St. Thomas had taken me to a race at North Central, and we got there a little bit early that day, and he wanted to show me something. So he takes me to their gymnasium where they have this Hall of Fame of sorts with a bunch of pictures, shows me one specific image, and it was Tony Bluell, the guy who won the NCAA D3 Cross Country National Championship in 1983, the exact same year that my coach got second. And he talked about it a little bit, and I remember I could see the pain in his face. I could hear it in his voice. And I remember thinking, I don't ever want to feel that pain. My coach had come that close to winning a national championship, but it slipped away. And I remembered that in that moment when I was leading and then got caught in my own national championship race. And the point I was making is that every pain is relative. The pain that I was feeling that day in that race was nothing compared to the pain my coach carried for 20-something years